Poetry. We're here with Al Jonhson, and we're talking about music. We're talking about black music in particular. Al, speaking of black music, what kind of effect has the Motown sound had on you?
Probably the same thing it's had on
everybody.
Everybody that's followed it.
Berry Gordy is awesome businessman.
And he, more than anyone, made it work. A lot of people, have talked about doing that in other places, but except for Gamble and Huff in Philadelphia, very few have. And the reason is there has to be a Berry Gordy at the head of it to make that kind of thing work. But going back to the Motown sound itself, it changed forever the way the world looked at black American music. I mean, it brought it into the immediate mainstream.
Sure did.
For years and years, it was the most popular music in the world. And this at a time when the Beatles and other English groups had terrified the American music scene. Had terrified the American music scene. The rock groups were talking about what are we going to do, and Motown was rolling right along.
I used to say Motown was kicking butt for decades. And they were.
Without question.
They really were. I think he understood something about the music industry, though. When you think of Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson, that's Motown.
Without question.
Really.
Without question.
I always admired the writing of Smokey Robinson. Man, this cat is a poet extraordinary. If you ever... And
my first real teacher, as far as songwriting goes. To me, he and Hal David, to my mind, the two greatest lyricists that ever did it. I mean, these guys consistently, the poetic content, what they were saying,
and how they said it.
Their way with words. I mean, it's just phenomenal to go back and and they're the kinds of songs in both cases that you can talk the lyrics out, and it makes just as much sense as when you sing them.
It's good poetry, in other words.
That's the true hallmark of a songwriter, as far as I'm concerned, is when you can talk his lyricism, without the benefit of music, and you still feel like you're saying something magical.
That's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of Motown music. And Motown songs are played even today, over and over, and remakes. You got the young rappers coming up. They have a lot of remakes. They're sampling and all that. So there's so much.
You know what's even more amazing about that?
What's that?
Is that when you listen today to those, not just the remakes, but to those same old tracks. If you listen, for example, to My Girl, or anything that was recorded during that time, it still sounds, it still holds up technically. And if you could go to Detroit and see the equipment they recorded that stuff on, I read a quote in an interview with Narada Michael Walden, and he was saying all the producers who really think they're hot stuff ought to go and see that equipment and imagine themselves trying to record something on it. It will teach you instant humility. And I had to say amen, because I've seen the equipment.
You seen it?
I've seen it.
What was it like, Al?
It is the most primitive looking stuff you can think of.
And I was like, they recorded on this?
They made they made magic on those things. They made magic on those. You listen to that stuff, man, it still sounds great.
They also made miracles.
Thank you very much.
You're right, magic and miracles. It's just amazing, though. I'd like to go there to Detroit.
Yeah, it's a museum. The same address on Grand Boulevard. It's a museum.
The 3 big houses?
Right.
Yeah. Man.
And it's just amazing what they did in those rooms. I mean,
How did it make you feel when you were there for the first time?
Well, like when you're around anything that's a part of history, it just it touches you.
It's a high.
Being in music myself, it's even it's there. It's an inspiration, and you might come on and write about 5 or 6 new songs behind it.
Well, I once heard that one of the Temptations said, I think it was David Ruffin said that the studio was so small that they had to stop recording when somebody used the bathroom. They had to flush the toilet.
That's true. The bathroom was probably the best place in the world to do vocals because of the acoustic, the way sound bounced back and forth off that tile.
And I bet you that's what they did sometimes. Boy, it's something.